So I'd like to do a simple core strengthening practice here, 10 to 15 minutes or so. And let's get started. We'll start by lying on our backs. Now you may opt to take a blanket for under your head. We'll be using a block and we'll be using a strap. So as usual, I jumped the gun and we need to actually get your props and then come and sit and lie down. I'll be placing a blanket here under my head just so you can see. And then we'll start lying flat on our backs, knees bent, feet flat. Adjusting my microphone to see if I can make it stable. All right. And we'll begin by placing your block between your upper thighs. And in that position there, we squeeze the block as you flatten out your low back. And with the back flat, using the hands on the low abdomen to get a sense of that, flattening out that low back so much that you can't really even stick your hand underneath there. A very flat lizard could not crawl under your low back. That may be an alarming idea to you. So we squeeze the block, we flatten the back. Now, the arms can reach up as if you're sort of a zombie, reaching up fingertips to the ceiling, palms facing each other. As you squeeze your block, flatten your back, you can opt instead to take your strap and wrap it around your wrists, pulling your strap straight up from the shoulders, and thereby giving yourself something to pull laterally on. So you pull right with your right hand, left with your left, pull straight up and lift your wrists straight above your shoulders. Now you can stay here. This is a perfectly reasonable place to engage your core, flatten your back, pull your arms. You don't need to lift up at all. But if you're craving a little bit more intensity, then you can opt to lift your shoulder blades up, pulling your strap right to left, lifting up. Notice that I'll slightly tuck my chin as I lift and hold, squeezing the blocks. You can dig in with your heels if you like, lifting up the toes and balls of the feet, and you can turn your head side to side to release your neck any amount, pulling the strap straight up. Don't let the strap come forward. That's quite natural. Instead, we want it to go straight up. Squeezing your block, flattening your back, pulling the strap, and lifting your shoulders straight up off of the mat. Slowly lower down. Take a big breath in. Exhale, squeeze your block, flatten your back, and lift up. Inhaling slowly down. Exhale, squeeze the block, lift, and engage. Breathing. Now you can lift and lower your heels as an alternative. Gently tap your toes, or keep your feet and legs still and just lift. Some people like to pulse. I find that actually increases the strain in my neck, so I like to just hold. One more breath in, inhaling and exhaling, and then slowly reach your arms overhead, keeping your block, slide your legs in the opposite direction. And take a nice, deep, long breath in as you flex your feet, squeeze your navel to your spine, pull on your strap, and even though you're cinching the waistline, reach through the arms and legs, and then let everything go slack. We'll gradually take the strap to the side of the body now. Remove your block, and we'll go into gentle toe touches. And for these, again, the low back is flat. We start with just slowly tapping your toes, one at a time. You can switch it out and tap your heels. For some, that feels better. Okay. And you can go alternating toes, heels. You can use Morse code to switch it up and communicate with someone in the next room. Just kidding. That's stupid. And so anyway, we're toe tapping or heel tapping. Okay? Now, if you would like to switch to a more intensive practice, you can take your legs up to the ceiling, take a block between your thighs. Let your knees be as bent or straight as they naturally will be. Yeah, if they can straighten all the way, great. Let your heels reach up, arms reach over the head next to your ears as if you're holding a beach ball behind the back of your head or over your crown, and slowly lower the heels any amount. Then keeping your back flat, lift the legs back up to vertical. Slowly lower and lift. Lowering slowly any amount, squeezing the block and lift. You can do this without the block. You can simply squeeze the legs together as you lower them down. Some people actually like to hold a block between the palms as well. That works. lowering and lifting. 2 more of these slow lowerings. You only lower so far as there's no strain in your back. You feel work in the back, but not strain or pain. You can always bend the knees like I'm showing here and just move the knees forward and back rather than trying to touch your feet to the floor. 1 more time, lowering and lifting. We'll meet back in the center. Bring the knees into the chest, remove your block, and gently rock side to side. Whew. Make a circle on the ceiling with your knees. All right. Then we'll interlace your hands, or actually just tent your fingers lightly behind the back of your head. And as you bring your elbows wide, lift and lower your shoulders. However, instead of pulling on your head and reaching and bringing your nose towards your knees, instead we lift the chest up towards the ceiling and gaze upward. Elbows are as wide as they can be. They tend to creep towards each other, and we tend to pull on the head. Instead, you want to drop your head, look behind you, and open up those elbows. Inhaling down, exhaling up. Inhaling down, exhaling up. 2 more of these. Inhale down, exhale up. Last one, inhale down, exhale up. And rest. Take a moment to gently windshield wiper your legs side to side. All right. Okay, very good. So the next thing we're going to do is take your block, place your block, the small rectangle on the edge of your block, on your right thigh. Put your right elbow, it's really your right upper arm bone, on your block. Interlace your hands behind your head and let your head fall into your hands. So you're not pulling your head up towards your block, you're dropping your head into your hands. Drop your right elbow, that's the one on the opposite side from me, and lift up your left leg. We'll slowly lower and lift your left leg up, squeezing that block between your left elbow and your right thigh. Now, if it doesn't work to use your left elbow, you can just use your left forearm, as I'm showing here. That works well, too. You can change the orientation of your block to a smaller, less protruding position, or use the elbow with the block coming out at you. Lowering and lifting slowly that left leg. Now, if it's not so easy for that leg to come vertical, then bend the knee into the chest and extend the leg out. We want to give the hip flexor a break as we're doing this, so we don't want to have the leg just lowering and lifting in front of you like I'm showing here. That's a little stressful for the front of the hip. Instead, we need to find at least a 90-degree angle at the thigh bone. Doesn't have to be the shin also, could be just the thigh. 2 more lowers and lifts. Lower and lift. And then slowly release. Take a break. Now, one thing I like to do to rest is to take the block and put it in front of my shins and then rock side to side. And that's just an interesting way to capture your shins and allow yourself to get a little relief in the back and in the hips. All right, and then we'll switch sides. Now the block presses the small rectangle onto your left thigh. Your right elbow pincers the block in place. You can lift up your left foot, interlace your hands, or tent your fingers behind your head and extend your right leg to the ceiling. Once again, I'm not pulling my head up. I'm letting my head fall into my fingertips or interlace fingers behind my head. So, la-di-da, slowly lowering and lifting that right leg. Nice and controlled. The knee can be bent. Totally fine if you're working with a bent right leg, as I'm showing here. Or for you to bend the knee into the chest and reach it out. Bend it in and then telescope it out. That's fine too. Exhaling, all the while flattening your navel to your spine, keeping your back flat on the mat. Lowering and lifting. Breathing in. It's really easy to hold your breath. I find that if I really push out the air, that's quite helpful. All right. One more time, lower and lift. Let's do one more after that. One more last time. And then bring the knees into the chest. Hold the strap, hold the block in front of your shins, and gently rock side to side. All right. Then we'll slowly bring the feet flat, gently roll to the side, and come on up. Now what I'd like to do now is spark plug plank. That's one where we use the blanket under the knees and a block between the hands, a second block between the upper thighs. You can always leave out the block between the hands and just simply place your palms together. Okay. So we take the block and place it front to back between your thigh bones, like so. And then we take a second blanket, or a blanket, one blanket, underneath your knees. And if your knees are not vulnerable, you don't need a blanket, totally fine. Now what we'll be doing is putting your forearms on the mat, squeezing your 5 fingers together and squeezing your block, okay? Now what we'll be doing here is bringing your heels towards the buttocks and lowering your hips just enough to start that the abs need to start to work. I lower the hips forward and down to a plank position, not to sag like this, but lifted, almost like you're doing downward dog with your hips. Forward to plank, up and back to table. Forward to plank, up and back. 2 more of these moving ones, yeah? Up and back, and 1 more time. And up and back. Now you might prefer to hold, so feel free to keep them moving as we were before, or hold as I'm doing here, but circling my ankles. Might as well get a little ankle mobility here into the bargain. Never have enough ankle movements here. Squeeze your block to activate your pectorals, your biceps, but the fingers are not grabbing your block. So look at your hands and see, are they grabbing the block like this? Or can you press the flat palms into the block edges? Lift up out of your elbows. If you're really craving a little bit more intensity, then tuck your toes under, lift your hips up, and you can always lift and elevate the hips towards dolphin, and then bring them back down. You can even walk your tippy toes in a little bit towards dolphin and come back down. 2 more hip lifts and down if you're doing them. Up and down. Hovering and breathing. Elongate through the crown of the head. Then slowly descend the knees and come all the way out. We'll rest in child's pose here. So we'll take the knees wide, the feet, big toes to touch, and walk the hands forward, reaching out for child's pose. Any version of child's pose that suits you. Yeah, so if this classic version is a little stressful, maybe you elevate your hips and just rest your forehead. Take a couple of big breaths in, big breaths out. 1 more deep breath in, and all the way out. All right, very good. So I just want to do 1 more core strengthener. This is one that I like to do. Sometimes I'll use a bolster, blanket. In this case, we'll use a block. 2 blocks, in fact. 1 block goes flat, and 1 block goes standing on its middle height. The flat block is horizontal to your mat, like that. Yeah. Second block is parallel to the long edge of your mat. All right. Now I'll remove this blanket, because what I'm going to do now is lie back on my back and sandwich the block that's on top between my 2 feet. Yeah, so you can see that I've got the block between the soles of my feet. All 10 toes are spreading. And I lower my back down and adjust my low back so it's flattening into the mat. And from here, as I reach for my shins, I grab onto my ankles and pull the heels to the pelvis, flattening out the low back. Now from here, you can squeeze your block, flatten your back, and hold, or you can opt to lengthen or lift your shoulder blades up and hold, or let go of your holding of your ankles and bring your hands underneath your thighs and go into penguins. Penguins are when you reach for your outer ankles with one arm and the other, and it makes you kind of waddle a little bit like a penguin, squeezing your block, I should say, right to left. Now some people like to put their hands behind their heads. I actually find that means there's more weight in my upper body, so I prefer to reach for my outer ankles. Gives me a little more leverage. And if the block slips, you can always reboot, place your feet flat, squeeze it, lift it up again. 8, 7, 6, side to side, 4, 5, 4, can't count, 3, and 2, and 1. Reach your arms together, lower down. Palms together in front of the heart. I should say the forehead. Then use your hands to draw your knees together. All right, bring the knees into the chest and rock side to side. All right, so one last posture, one last strengthener. It's a Sphinx pose core strengthener that involves lying on your front body. And for this, I tend to like to open up a blanket. Whenever I do Sphinx pose, I like to cover the surface of the mat with a soft blanket so it doesn't dig into the bony hip points, etc. So we take our Sphinx pose here. Now, the forearms are placed forward like two straight lines, number 11, okay? And the tops of the feet are down unless there's strain or pain with it, in which case you tuck your toes under. That's totally fine. And if your feet do bother you, can roll up a blanket and put it under your ankles, under the tops of your ankles. Now from here, we scoop the belly down, lift the belly up, I should say, scoop the pelvis down, tuck your pubic bone deeply into the mat. So the chest is lifting, the pubic bone is pressing, the shoulder blades come together, and the chest is broad. And then what we do is we slowly lift the hips up any amount, and then slowly pubic bone leads come back into Sphinx. And then again, lifting up. The knees might be fully straight, or they might not. Slowly lifting up, and then all the way down. 2 more times, slow lift, and pubic bone leads. And last time, slow lift, and pubic bone leads. And then hang out in your Sphinx pose, but this is not a relaxation pose. The buttocks are engaging, the pubic bone is pressing, the sternum is lifting. And then you can tuck your chin all the way down, keeping your shoulders lifting up out of your elbows, and slowly rotate your chin upwards. And then tuck the chin down, sternum lifts, and slowly lift the chin. One more time, tuck the chin, and slowly lift. And then we'll tuck the toes under, draw the big toes to touch, and walk your hips back for child's pose. Allow your forehead to rest down on the mat. And then really breathe into your low back. Then into your rib cage. Then into your chest and shoulder area. And again, low back and belly. Rib cage flares. Finally up into the chest and shoulders. And then slowly, gradually come all the way up. All right. Thank you very much for joining me. That was just a little bit of core for you. You can add that into any practice. If you ever feel like the asana practice is a little too wimpy, you can just add on this little extra core practice at the end whenever you like. Thank you so much. Namaste.